More Tools and Sense. This is the show where I show you how to use tools that nobody owns to build cars that nobody wants. Today, we do war! USA! On the last episode of More Tools and Sense, I'd finally finished all this boring bodywork, and now it's time to move on to boring engine work. Got a big box of old parts. We're going to see what we can still scavenge and use on this engine. Now, a lot of these parts came off of a stock 87 pickup truck, and this engine is no longer stock at all. That alternator, for example, is no longer going to work in that position. But right now, we've got a belt connected to the water pump and to the power steering, which means we'll have coolant, which is good enough for now, and I'll worry about the alternator later. As much as I love making my projects out of old, used-up garbage, radiators are one of those things I always buy new. Now, just because this radiator is new does not mean it's ready to be installed. I'll need to make some custom tabs that I can bolt into the frame. And of course, I let the supervisor finish the install to make sure it was done correctly. Next, it's time to install the guzzling injection, followed by the spark slinger, and then the Aqua-Cola overflow. Now, none of these parts are going to do anything if I don't get some power to them, so I'm at least going to have to do the bare minimum of wiring to get started. Fuses, gauges, and switches are installed, and of course we're going to have to add some coolant. Guess let's find out. That's more encouraging. It works. It actually works. And other than leaking a little bit of coolant here and there, it actually works pretty good as far as I can tell. Now I do have to do a couple of things before I can take it for a test drive. It needs a throttle cable, something to hold the battery, something to hold a fuel tank, and it doesn't have any oil in the transmission, so definitely want to do that before I start driving it around. Get excited? Now, there are a lot of little things to take care of, so I'm going to step outside for a minute and let this montage do its thing. It was around this time that my wife, who is a professional level cosplayer, found out about another group of cosplayers who were all meeting up in Pittsburgh for a huge Mad Max photo shoot. Now, even though things like the alternator bracket and the exhaust had taken a little longer than I would have liked, I still had plenty of time to get the car ready for this event. Right? Well, everything was going just fine, and the engine had been running, and I even took it out for a couple test drives, and it seemed to be doing just great. And then this happened. If you'll excuse me for a moment. Mother!
Hubbard.
Piece of
Trash. Gosh darn.
donkey!
Loving. But.
Crack! Piece of...
Dang. Garbage.
Sorry. So it seems like the next step we're going to have to take is to pull the engine apart and figure out what is broken. Well, here's a hint. I tried to engineer things so the body was easy to remove, and that did come in handy. And how does the oil look? Well, not too bad considering this. Well, after pulling the top end apart, it's pretty easy to spot, but the problem is indeed the lifters, about half of them are chewed up all into garbage. And there's a couple of reasons why that might have happened, but what everyone agrees on is that what's going to happen next is that this engine's going to have to get completely torn down. We're going to have to clean it all out, replace all the bearings, otherwise I'm going to have tons of problems in the future. Super fun. Well, at this point, the right thing to do would be to take this engine to a professional and have it hot tanked. I haven't done the right thing once so far, so I'm not about to start now. There is one upside to this complete disaster, and that's the second time I put the engine together, I got to make this cool time-lapse video. Alright, well the engine's back together for the second time, so hopefully this isn't a third time's the charm kind of situation. Hopefully we can charm this baby with just 2 times. Alright, should start right away. Should run perfectly. Should not explode after 50 minutes. Oh god, I'm so scared. Now, if you know anything about engines, you could probably tell something ain't right. But you know what? Time is a factor. So I drained the oil and there was no big chunks in it. I checked out the camshaft. It wasn't missing any pieces either. And with that photo shoot coming up in 1 week, we are moving on. Now, there are a lot of aesthetic details left to do, and my goal was to get as many of them done as I could. So I started with these bumpers. Then I moved on to the steering wheel, which was a little wonky. Sorry about your ribs, bro. This was honestly my favorite part of the entire build. You could put this thing together in so many cool ways, and I wanted to build all of them, but I eventually had to settle for just one. Next, I wanted to recover the seats, so I had to find some leather somewhere.
Let's stop. Listen to me! Listen to me! Stop! No.
Sorry, old friend. Again, time was fairly short, so rather than reupholstering the seats entirely, I basically made seat covers for them. After that, it was time to make a shift knob. And then I wanted to start working in the trunk, which will essentially become the fighting platform of this pursuit vehicle. Now, if you're going to be welding right next to a fuel tank, make sure that your tank has plenty of these safety cracks to allow all of the explosive gases to escape. We wouldn't want those to build up. So, safety first. If you've seen the movie Fury Road, then you know what I'm building next. And if you haven't seen that movie, what are you even doing here? Why are you watching this video? Thundersticks aside, we're going to need some more weapons for our pursuit vehicle. I started out with this 22 gauge pellet gun because it looks fairly realistic and it doesn't have the safety concerns of using a real weapon. Also, I already had it. I bought a cheap hand crossbow and then added some decorations to that. I needed to make a bracket to hold it inside the door. And the door itself needed some dressing up as well. And since this is a pursuit vehicle, we need something that will strike fear into the hearts of the pursued. Nice. The fuel tank without any cracks in it did arrive in time. And that's it. Time's up. Pencils down. Well, as you can see, we made it in time, and Immortan Joe, Furiosa, and Max were all there, along with a whole host of other cast members that just looked epically awesome. We were able to get a lot of great photos taken inside the historic Pittsburgh steel mill. Meet a lot of the coolest cosplaying people you've ever seen. And of course, capture some video like this. What a day. What a lovely day. Oh man, we had so much fun. I got to meet a bunch of awesome cosplayers. They're getting ready to fire up the big screen and we're gonna watch Fury Road, and it's just been an awesome time. If you liked what you saw, don't forget to subscribe. This has been More Tools and Sense. See ya.